I'm talking about 5 common mistakes that beginning model railroaders often make on Ron's Trains and Things right now. Hi, I'm Ron of Ron's Trains and Things, and if you'd like to see more model railroading tips, tools, and techniques, then be sure and subscribe down below and click that little bell icon so you won't miss a thing. If you could go back in time and avoid some of the mistakes that you have made through the course of your life, most of us would probably like to change or redo some things that we have done. Well, the same is true in model railroading. Most of us who've been model railroading for a while can look back on our early days in the hobby and realize that we made some mistakes that if we could do them over again, we probably would. Well, today I want to share with you 5 common mistakes that I see so many model railroaders make in the beginning of their model railroading career. Some of them are mistakes that I made myself, but many of them are mistakes that we can avoid if we're just aware of them and take a little bit of care. Do you know of some mistakes that maybe you made or you've seen other model railroaders make that beginning model railroaders might benefit from knowing about? If so, tell me about them down in the comments section below. The first common mistake that I see in many beginning model railroaders is simply not getting started in the hobby. There are so many armchair modelers who, for years, will read model railroad magazines and watch videos, but never get started collecting, never get started building a diorama or a layout. They just never really get started in the hobby. Now, I think there are several reasons why people are slow to get started in the hobby. Sometimes they don't get started because they simply don't know where to start. If that's you, then I would suggest you take some of those hobby magazine articles and begin to use them to help you develop a plan for your model railroad. Begin to read some model railroad books. There are some great books out there about track plans, about building bench work, laying track work, every aspect of model railroading. Begin to use some of those to help you to develop a plan. And of course, there are always lots and lots of great resources right here on YouTube, as well as on forums and other websites on the internet. There are literally tens of thousands of great model railroading videos on YouTube, and probably hundreds of thousands of great model railroading articles and resources. So if you would say, I just don't know where to start, I would say begin doing some reading, watching some videos, and taking some notes, and begin to develop a plan for where you would like to start in the hobby. Sometimes people don't get started in the hobby out of fear. That is, they are afraid that they don't know what to do or that they don't have enough skills to be able to build what they need to build in order to begin their model railroad layout. And so they allow fear to paralyze them into inaction. And if that describes you, then I want to encourage you today. I want you to understand that sometimes the most valuable thing we can do is to try something and fail and learn the lessons from that failure so that we can do it better the next time. Don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid of making a mistake. Don't be afraid of building something that you may want to replace or change down the road. That's all part of the process of the hobby and of growing and building your skills in the hobby. The best way to get started in the hobby of model railroading is simply to begin doing something and to learn from what you do. We learn by doing, we learn from our mistakes. So I would say get out of that armchair and let's get started. A second common mistake that I see beginning model railroaders make is taking on too much model railroad early in their model railroading career. It's easy to take on a commitment of more time or more money than we really can handle. I think it's important that we are careful to guard ourselves against trying to take on something too large in the very beginning as model railroaders. Another danger in taking on too much model railroad at once is that sometimes we can get bogged down in a project that is too large for us, and our apparent slow progress leads to boredom and ultimately leads us to quit participating in the hobby. I would say that just because you have a large empty basement doesn't necessarily mean you should try to fill it with model railroad right away. If you're new in the hobby, I would suggest you start small. Personally, my first layout was literally 4 feet by 4 feet, and I had a lot of fun building and operating that small layout for about the first 4 years of my model railroading career. There can be a lot of challenges and a lot of fun in building a small switching layout, a diorama, or just a small 4x8 or door top type layout as the first project that we tackle. It can give us a lot of practice in laying track, in building structures, in doing scenery, and help us to build the skills we need to later build a larger layout when we're ready to take that project on. My suggestion, if you're a beginner, is start small. Build in sections. One thing that's become a common practice in the hobby is to build sectional layouts where you build one section at a time, you get it to a fair level of achievement, and then you add on the next segment or section of the model railroad. This is a great way to consider getting started in the hobby, because then as you complete one section, you can always add more to that section to grow your layout, but you don't get so bogged down in both time and money that you become bored. So again, I would encourage you, don't try to take on too much at once. Get started, but start small and do something that will help you grow your skills in the hobby. A third mistake that many beginning model railroaders make is skimping on track work and wiring. It's easy to get some bench work built and to get so anxious to run trains that we hurry through building our roadbed, laying track, and wiring that track to get our trains going. As we are tempted to hurry through the track laying process, sometimes we make too many compromises on things like minimum curvature, minimum turnout sizes, maximum grades, and these things can lead to a poorly operating layout that can be a great frustration for many years to come. Even worse is not taking enough time and care to avoid things like possible kinks in our track work, vertical curves where our track changes elevation too quickly, which can cause uncoupling problems, or not taking care to allow for expansion and contraction, which can lead to kinking and other kinds of problems with our track work down the road. Along this same line can be the problem of not including enough feeders, not doing a good clean job of soldering, and other kinds of poor wiring and shoddy electrical work. One of the things that I have learned over time as a model railroader is that an adequate or even poor looking model railroad can be a lot of fun to operate if the track work and the wiring is solid and the trains run well. But the most beautifully scenic and supplied model railroad layout with structures and industries that runs poorly, that is constantly derailing, that always has electrical problems, can become a frustration that nobody enjoys operating. So I would say the most important place that you should have very high standards and work very hard and very carefully is in the area of track work and electrical wiring. Do not skimp in this area. You'll be very sorry that you did. The best way to make sure that your track work and wiring are rock solid is to work in small areas as you are laying your track, wire your track as you go, and test everything as you go under the most extreme conditions. I lay my track in small sections, I wire it into my DC system as I go, I check it for short protection as I go, and then I test locomotives electrically on the track as well as rolling stock on all of the turnouts and the curves as I build each small section. As I test it, I make sure that I test the track electrically with some of my worst running locomotives, because a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And so I know the greatest frustrations can come from my worst running locomotives. Therefore, if my worst running locomotives will run well on a section of track, then I know all of my locomotives will run well. The same way with rolling stock through turnouts and curves. I take some of my rolling stock that is most likely to derail, and I test the turnouts and the curves and track joints with that rolling stock, because I know if it will roll through everything, then my better rolling stock will roll through it easily. Taking time to test everything, building in small sections, holding yourself to high standards in the area of track work and wiring will lead to a model railroad that you will find enjoyable and get a lot of satisfaction from for years to come. So please do not skimp on your track work. A fourth common mistake of many beginning model railroaders is choosing intentionally to be a lone wolf. Sometimes when we're new at something, we're intimidated by those who are more advanced or more skilled at that thing than we are. And the same can be true of model railroading. I know that clubs and groups of model railroaders who have been involved in the hobby for years can be intimidating to someone who is just getting started in the hobby. We feel intimidated by those who have more skill than us, by those who have more knowledge than we do about railroading and model railroading. And so it's easy to just avoid those groups and think, oh, we'll just do what we can on our own. While I understand that intimidation, and while I know that sometimes experienced model railroaders can be a tough crowd, breaking into those crowds and getting involved in groups of model railroaders can pay great dividends as we move forward as model railroaders. We can benefit greatly from the wisdom and experience of those who have been around the model railroading block a time or two. Those who have built bench work, who have laid track, who have a lot of knowledge about operations or about prototype railroads can be a huge help to us as we move forward in building our own layouts and improving our layout as we move forward. So I would definitely suggest trying to get involved with some other model railroaders in some way. Getting involved in the National Model Railroad Association and joining a local or regional NMRA group. Getting involved in a model railroad club can be a great way to get to know other modelers. Perhaps some modelers in your area just have some informal operating groups where you can rub shoulders and run trains with other modelers around you. And people that you meet at your local model railroad shop or hobby shop can be great resources for you. But don't just consider these people resources for your hobby. Many times they can become great friends as well. If you're like me, I live in a small town, not in a city. I'm pretty isolated where I am, and I don't know many other model railroaders in my local area, which means that I have to travel some distance to get involved in model railroad groups. Now that travel is worthwhile, and I do that when I can, but I also find that there's a great resource right here on YouTube. There are so many great model railroaders that you can interact with, and one great place to do that is through the YouTube Model Builders. I would suggest you check out that channel. I'll provide a link to it in the description down below. YouTube Model Builders has some great monthly shows where you can learn a lot of skills in model railroading, but they also have frequent live hangouts where you literally can just go by video chat and hang out with some other model railroaders where you can learn a lot about building a layout, about different aspects of model railroading, and about real railroading. Don't choose to be a lone wolf. Get involved with some other people, get to know some other model railroaders, and benefit from the experience that they can bring to you as you move forward in the hobby. A final mistake that I often see beginning model railroaders make is being impatient in the hobby. Impatience can lead to all kinds of problems for us as we progress in model railroading. Impatience can lead to shoddy work, much like the skimping on track work that I talked about earlier, but it can also lead to shoddy work in structure building, in scenery building, leading us to build layouts that we're just not satisfied with and we quickly want to replace. Some patience in trying to do our best in all of our work will obviously produce a better layout that we'll be happier with as we move forward. One of the things that I have learned over time is that you improve as you take time to patiently work towards improvement. The old adage says that practice makes perfect, but that's just not true. The fact is, practice makes consistent. Bobby Knight used to tell his players, you play like you practice. So if we want to improve, we need to practice well, not just practice repeatedly. We need to take the time to slow down and try to improve and build our skills as we build structures, as we build scenery, practicing in such a way as to grow and improve our skills in the hobby. Another way that impatience gets us into trouble is by too quickly trying to invest in too many structures, locomotives, and rolling stock. I've known many model railroaders who have literally got themselves into financial hot water with their spouses and with their families because they overspent trying to collect too much model railroad equipment too quickly. I have built my fleet of locomotives and rolling stock literally over the course of 20 years. And it has taken me most of those years to build up a roster that's adequate to run the size of layout that I have. But that's okay because that patience has paid off. I didn't always have the money to invest in all of the rolling stock that I would like, or every locomotive that came out that I wanted. But my patience has allowed me to build a roster of locomotives, of rolling stock, of structures that I'm very happy with. And of course, I'm patiently adding to that roster all the time. Impatience may feel like it pays dividends today, but ultimately it can lead to a frustration that can result in our getting out of the hobby altogether. Another area of impatience that I would warn you against is the temptation to become frustrated over our apparent slow progress in building a layout. Building a model railroad, and especially building one well, takes time. For those of us who are still working full-time jobs, who have families, who may have children at home who are involved in activities, all of these things take a lot of time, and there's only so much time to go around. We only have a limited amount of time to spend in our hobby. And so if we strive to do things well in the limited amount of time that we have, it takes time, often years, to build a quality layout. I always marvel at those who build a layout start to finish in a year or two. I have never been able to accomplish that. But with patience, I can see progress every year, and I celebrate each step in that progress as I go. I celebrate getting the track laid and being able to first run trains. I celebrate every area that I'm able to scenic or fill with structures. Celebrating each one of these little steps of accomplishment along the way helps to guard against the impatience, the frustration, the boredom that can set in, and keeps us interested in a hobby that should keep us satisfied for many years to come. So there you have 5 very common mistakes that many beginning model railroaders make. If you're just getting started in the hobby, I hope that you'll take very seriously this advice and guard against making these mistakes as you move forward. All of us are going to make mistakes in the hobby. None of us are going to do things perfectly. But by taking seriously some little advice and some wisdom of those who are a little further down the road than us in the hobby, we can find that we can progress much more quickly and that we can avoid some of the frustrations that often lead people to stop participating in the hobby altogether. Again, if you have some other mistakes that you have made or that you have seen other modelers make in the beginning of their model railroading career, share those with us in the comment section down below. Let us benefit from your wisdom as well. If you enjoyed this video today, here's a link to some more videos that I know you'll enjoy as well. If you did enjoy this video, give it a thumbs up down below. Be sure and share it wherever model railroaders hang out. And of course, you'll want to subscribe and click that little bell icon so you can catch future videos. I also hope you'll check out the description right below this video. There you'll see a link to my Amazon page where you can find great products related to model railroading, to video making, and many other things. But even if you do your regular Amazon shopping through that link, you'll get the same great Amazon experience and prices, and you'll be helping to support this channel and great model railroading content as you do. Also in the description, you'll find a link to my Patreon page where you can learn about the rewards that are offered to those who invest in this channel on an ongoing basis. I hope you'll take some time to check that out. I want to thank you for watching today, and I hope you'll join me again next Tuesday when I bring you another great model railroading segment, and I look forward to seeing you then. 10, Lizzie?